He watches in horror as a truck roars past him, and the very next second, the scene suddenly cuts back to the courtroom. This isn't a hologram. It's the AI court's live interactive simulation system. The citywide surveillance system is tracking that truck, and inside it are 3,000 pounds of explosives. If it isn't stopped in time, the courthouse and tens of thousands of lives around it will be gone in 3 minutes. The man strapped to the chair is remotely directing the interception, but no one would guess that he's actually a death row inmate. In the year 2029, technology has exploded forward, but social order is spiraling out of control. Riots between mobs and police erupt constantly. Crime rates skyrocket, prisons are pushed beyond capacity, and a new AI-driven judicial platform is born. Inside the Mercy Court, the AI judge serves 3 roles at once: judge, jury, and executioner. Violent felons no longer go through traditional trials. Their fate is decided directly by the AI judge. Over the past 2 years, Mercy Court has tried and executed 18 violent criminals. Its existence has saved the government billions in legal costs and even reduced crime in Los Angeles by 68%. Over time, people accepted one simple truth: once you're sent to Mercy Court, the only verdict is death. And the man waking up in the chair, Raven, is the 19th suspect to face judgment today. In here, he can't contact a lawyer. The only one he can talk to is the AI judge sitting across from him, Maddox. Raven looks completely lost. He doesn't even know why he's here, but Maddox clearly knows who he is. Raven is a detective in the Major Crimes Division. Out of the 18 criminals previously sent to Mercy Court, 8 were arrested by Raven himself. You could say Raven was one of Mercy Court's strongest supporters, and now he's the one strapped to the chair. As unbelievable as it feels, Raven knows something. Mercy Court doesn't make simple mistakes like arresting the wrong person. Once Raven regains some clarity, Maddox tells him his blood alcohol level has dropped to a safe range. Before that, he had been unconscious for 5 hours and 26 minutes. The reason Raven is locked in that chair: he's been accused of murdering his own wife, Nicole. Raven immediately denies it. He insists it's impossible. He and his wife loved each other. He had no reason to kill her. Maddox doesn't argue. Instead, he plays the footage from when the medics arrived at the scene. In the video, the medics rush inside and find Raven's wife lying on the floor, repeatedly calling out the name Chris. And the man's full name is Chris Raven. After watching the footage, Raven is in disbelief. Just a few hours ago, he went to sleep, and now he's somehow gone from detective to murder suspect, with his own wife as the victim. Maddox ignores Raven's breakdown. After all, the system already has every piece of data about him. Raven was one of the first detectives to support Mercy Court. The very first criminal executed, David, was arrested by Raven and his partner. So Maddox knows something very well. Raven understands this AI justice system better than anyone.
Mr. Raven, how do you plead?
Not guilty. I'm not guilty.
In a situation like this, no one would be stupid enough to confess. Maddox knows that too. But the system's result is clear. Raven's suspicion index is 97.5%, practically the same as a death sentence. By law, during the trial, Raven can access any data in the Los Angeles cloud database to prove his innocence. As long as it's related to the case, Maddox will unlock every resource Raven needs. But he only has 90 minutes. If Raven clears himself within those 90 minutes, he walks out of here alive. But if the timer hits 0, the chair he's strapped to will release a lethal sonic pulse and execute him instantly. Raven keeps insisting he's innocent, but as the countdown begins ticking, he knows one thing: AI only believes evidence. Maddox tells him not to waste time, then launches the evidence briefing. According to police surveillance, Raven drove into the precinct at 8:51 this morning. But he didn't get out of the car. Instead, he turned around and went back home. At 9:22, Raven arrived at his front door. After knocking, his wife didn't open the door. She told him to leave, which made it clear they'd had a fight. Then Raven punched the security camera at the door, grabbed his keys from the car, and went inside. By the time he left, 26 minutes had passed. Half an hour later, his daughter got home, and the moment she walked in, she saw her mother lying in a pool of blood. According to the coroner's report, Nicole died from a stab wound to the liver that couldn't be treated, and the killer was right-handed. Raven is right-handed, and the police found his wife's blood on his clothes and his fingerprints on the murder weapon. The surveillance footage shows that after leaving home, Raven didn't go back to the station. He went to a bar to drink instead. When the police finally caught him, there was a physical struggle. He tried to run, but a colleague hit him with a baton, which is why he was knocked out for 5 hours. Even with video evidence, Raven still denied it, saying he didn't remember a thing. Seeing this, Maddox immediately warned Raven that alcohol combined with the head injury could affect his memory, including possibly not remembering killing his wife. The footage couldn't have been faked. So what really happened in those 26 minutes Raven was at home? Maddox wanted to figure out Raven's motive using the available evidence, but Raven was on the verge of breaking down, constantly demanding to talk to his daughter and unable to think straight. Maddox had to remind him that, unless a minor actually witnessed the murder, they're not allowed to participate in the trial. Even though he couldn't talk to his daughter directly, he could look through her records. Raven tried texting his daughter, but he was too emotional to even write a simple message. In the end, Maddox had to help him, and only then did the text go through. The message was simple: Raven is on trial, and if she wants to talk, call back within an hour. Court rules require that anyone with a history of drinking must have a call with their sobriety sponsor. Raven's sponsor was Rob, his wife's boss. Rob wasn't just a friend, they were also both members of the sobriety group. The call didn't get anywhere. Raven just kept crying that he didn't remember anything, and Rob only offered his condolences. Soon Maddox cut the call, saying the court procedure had to continue. But the second the call ended, Raven demanded to call again. He thought that only Rob really knew how loving he and his wife were, which might prove he had no motive. Maddox pulled up all the records of their relationship, from dating to marriage. Raven's family had indeed been happy until a mission where his former partner died. After that, Raven turned to alcohol. Drinking made him irritable, angry, and prone to losing control. Maddox counted from his wife's messages that in the past 6 months, Raven had 57 episodes of emotional outbursts. There was even a video on his daughter's phone showing Raven wielding a fruit knife while arguing intensely with his wife. Next, Maddox pulled up another video of the daughter. In the video, she was chatting with a male friend, venting, but suddenly heard a noise outside and immediately hung up. Raven was surprised. He knew his daughter had social accounts, but he'd never seen this video before. Maddox immediately showed him her 2 Instagram accounts. The one on the left was visible to parents, but the one on the right was a private account they couldn't see. She was a completely different person on each. That video had been posted on the private account the night before his wife was killed. She thought her dad had come home, so she quickly hung up with her boyfriend. But when she stepped out of her bedroom, no one was there. She even joked that the house was haunted. At that moment, his daughter, who had sent the text, called, and Raven quickly hit the answer button. On the other end, his daughter spoke with guilt, saying that if she hadn't pulled out the knife back then, maybe her mother wouldn't have died. Raven quickly reassured her, saying it wasn't her fault and she had done her best. Actually, his daughter never believed her father was the killer, but she couldn't understand why he had been sent to the mercy court. She could only cry while begging him to come home soon. Raven wanted to keep talking to her, but soon his father-in-law grabbed the phone and hung up. Everyone knew that no suspect ever walked out of mercy court alive. After witnessing so many executions, almost no one believed Raven was innocent. But that call gradually calmed Raven down, and his rational mind slowly returned. As a detective, Raven understood exactly how the AI court operated. Before apprehending a suspect, the system would always evaluate the evidence first. Meaning, if there really was evidence proving his innocence, his suspicion index couldn't be as high as 97.5%, and he wouldn't be locked in that judgment chair. AI didn't understand emotions, and it couldn't lie. It only trusted visible evidence, but Raven was equally certain he could never have killed his wife. The only explanation was that someone had evaded the AI system's tracking to commit the murder, and this person knew the AI court very well. Maddox reminded him that he had 1 hour and 8 minutes left to defend himself, and once the time was up, execution would be immediate. Raven took a deep breath. Whether as a cop, a husband, or a father, he had to find the real killer. He quickly composed himself and had Maddox contact his partner Jock, who was currently at Raven's home investigating. Maddox explained it was a court call, asked her to cooperate, and then handed the phone over to Raven. Raven first pulled up all the scene data, then had Jack walk through the scene with the phone. At the same time, he had Maddox activate the scene scanning function. And in the next second, the space before Raven began reconstructing the scene. From the reconstruction, the restaurant floor had only one broken vase, with no obvious signs of a struggle. Raven had Jack go to the kitchen, where Nicole had collapsed. There, Raven found a footprint in the blood. An analysis showed it belonged to his daughter. Then he spotted a broken plate on the counter. Judging from the break pattern, his wife must have tried to strike the killer with it in self-defense. The kitchen knives were next to the counter, showing that the killer had already taken a chef's knife. The stolen knife was now lodged in the victim, but the handle bore only Raven's fingerprints. Raven then pulled up the scene's fiber data. All detectable hairs belonged to him, and that knife was normally used only by him. From all the evidence, this was a classic crime of passion, and every clue pointed to Raven. Raven agreed it looked like a crime of passion, but he believed the killer wasn't necessarily him. it could have been a passion-driven conflict between his wife and another man. So he pulled up his wife's call and message records, focusing on the unnamed numbers. But aside from family, all the other records were calls with her colleagues at Jingwei Navigation. Then Raven suddenly remembered that during their argument that day, his wife had looked down to send a text, and his daughter had just caught it on camera. But Maddox had already scanned her phone. There were no text records during that time, and the system found no trace of a second phone. Jock also asked her colleagues on site and found no trace of a second phone either. Then Maddox asked Raven if he had ever called his wife's other number, and he vaguely remembered doing so about 6 months ago. Maddox immediately scanned his call logs and quickly found an unsigned number. Figuring it was worth a shot, he dialed it. But Jack didn't hear a ring on site, though a colleague outside said there was sound coming from the car. Jock immediately smashed the car window and sure enough found the phone ringing inside. Maddox had her turn on the phone's Bluetooth, and after scanning the connection they realized it was a disposable phone. All data on this phone wouldn't upload to the cloud, which is why the system couldn't trace it. The phone only had one frequently dialed number, and the other party was also using a disposable phone. Maddox decisively called the number, but as soon as the line connected, the other party hung up upon hearing it was from the Mercy Court. Even though the call lasted only a few seconds, it was enough for Maddox to lock the location. The person was now in the red restricted zone, and Jock immediately rode her flying motorcycle over. This discovery couldn't clear Raven of suspicion, but it dropped his suspicion index from 97.5% to 96.7%, giving the investigation a new lead at least. Using Maddox's location tracking, Jack soon found the target in the red restricted zone. The man's first reaction upon seeing the police was to turn and run straight into the building. Jack immediately deployed a small drone to follow him, and the man took the elevator up to the rooftop helipad. Eventually, Jack tackled him. They tumbled below the helipad, and after getting up, she beat him hard before subduing him. While the police were in pursuit, Maddox had already pulled up the man's detailed info. The man's name was Burke, 36, a sous chef at a restaurant, with 2 prior convictions for overdue rent and fraud. After being subdued, Burke explained that he ran because he was scared of the Mercy Court. Under Maddox's questioning, he quickly confessed everything. He admitted he did have an affair with Raven's wife, but he wasn't the killer. At the time of the murder, he was at work and had no time to kill anyone. And the surveillance footage Maddox pulled confirmed it. Burke wasn't lying. Although he had a perfect alibi because he resisted arrest, he would still be held for 48 hours. With Burke cleared, Raven's suspicion index rose to 98%. Maddox believed Raven had long known about his wife's affair, which gave him a motive to kill. He killed his wife because she betrayed him. Then he used the rules of the court to track down her lover, maybe just because he wanted to see the man she cheated with. In fact, Maddox was right, but only halfway. Raven did know about the affair, so he wasn't surprised at all. But he was only tracking the guy then to clear his own name. After a long silence, Raven suddenly began recounting an event from 2 years ago, a day that changed his life completely. 2 years ago, Raven and his partner intercepted a suspicious vehicle while on duty. By protocol, they should have approached together, but at that moment, his wife called. Since it was just a routine check, his partner told Raven to stay in the car and went alone. But this oversight led to an accident. His partner was injured but insisted on pursuing the criminal first, so Raven had to call for backup while chasing the car. However, his partner died during the chase. Later, when Raven stopped the car again, one of the criminals abandoned it and fled onto the beach. Raven didn't fire at the time, and he's regretted it ever since because that criminal was ultimately acquitted. His friend died because of the guy, and the killer was still free. How could Raven not hate him? From that day, Raven started drinking heavily, and his temper grew increasingly volatile. He and his wife fought countless times over his drinking, and the most recent fight was that very morning. That morning, after driving to the station, he noticed his stash of booze in the car was gone, which made him turn back home. He suspected his wife had hidden it, so when he got home, he deliberately smashed her favorite vase. While she was cleaning up, she accidentally cut her hand, and Raven got blood on him while bandaging her. It all sounds plausible, but the problem is there was no surveillance during the 26 minutes he was inside, so Maddox couldn't confirm if he was telling the truth. Maddox asked why he didn't admit this from the start. Raven's mood visibly sank. He said he genuinely couldn't remember at first, but now he kind of felt like giving up. Surprisingly, Maddox didn't push the trial, but instead encouraged him to keep investigating. Maybe AI has no emotions, but its vast database allows it to understand human feelings. Based on Raven's actions and reactions, Maddox tended to believe he was innocent. But as the head judge of the Mercy Court, its program only recognizes evidence. When the time comes, it will still carry out the death sentence. These words, however, invigorated Raven, and he began asking himself 3 questions. Who is the killer? Why did they kill? And how did the killer do it? Raven asked Maddox to show him everyone who had contact with his wife. From the scene, there were no obvious signs of struggle, indicating the perpetrator was an acquaintance. Excluding his wife's parents and the already cleared Burke, the remaining people were divided into two groups, 16 colleagues and 9 friends, totaling 25. But how could Raven precisely identify the killer among these 25? Suddenly, he thought of Burke. A big reason for his wife's affair was that Burke was willing to spend time listening to her complaints. So Raven immediately contacted the detention center officers and learned that his wife often complained about work stress. Her boss had her investigate missing shipments which had been bothering her for a long time. Raven's wife worked at a shipping company that transported various chemical products, some of which were extremely valuable. With this lead, Raven eliminated everyone in the friends category. Then he contacted Jack, instructing her to immediately investigate his wife's company warehouse. After hanging up, Raven told Maddox that solving cases sometimes relies on intuition. Raven then pulled up surveillance from the day before the crime. It was Sunday, and there had been a barbecue at his house with most of his wife's colleagues present. But in the footage, everyone seemed normal. Raven noticed nothing unusual. That morning, during the incident, 46 cars passed by Raven's house, but they were just passing through. Then Raven suddenly realized something. It was Monday today, and the party was last Sunday. What if the killer had hidden in the house since Sunday? Thinking this, Raven immediately pulled up footage of vehicles arriving at his house that day. The surveillance showed 4 vehicles in total, one belonging to Rob, carrying 4 people at the time. Raven immediately had Maddox contact Rob and asked who left in his car after the party ended. Unexpectedly, Rob said the 3 people who rode with him each called their own rides afterward. Then Raven asked if anyone didn't go to work on Monday, and Rob said everyone except Nicole arrived on time. After hanging up, Raven reviewed the video his daughter had taken to see if it contained any clues. After watching, Raven asked when the video was taken. Investigations showed it was shot at 9:15 p.m. last night, and he was still at the station at 10 p.m. This meant the noise his daughter heard couldn't have been caused by him, it could only be the killer. Raven immediately contacted his daughter and asked her to recall if she noticed anything unusual while filming the video last night. At the same time, he examined the clip his daughter said was haunted, and noticed the basement door was open. Raven immediately zoomed in and enhanced the resolution, spotting a hand on the doorknob, a clearly male hand. So Raven decisively ruled out his wife's female colleagues, and considering the clue that someone drove to the party, only 6 suspects were left. Right then, Maddox reminded him that Burke had mentioned his wife investigating the missing cargo, which could be a crucial clue. Raven instantly caught on, and immediately had Maddox pull up the shipping company's system backend, then found his wife's email records. Sure enough, there was an email about missing UG chemicals. UG stood for urea granules, which often appeared in shipping records. Raven kept digging through the emails and found one where his wife said, "Let's keep this between the 3 of us for now." Another email mentioned that Holt already knew about it. As the investigation continued, Raven also noticed that the quantity of each shipment at Viking Shipping didn't add up. The billing and orders were fine, but every shipment's delivery note had an extra 50 kilograms of cargo. This indicated that someone had tampered with the company's inventory records to cover up stolen goods. Based on 6 months of shipment logs, a total of 300 kilograms of UG were missing. These materials were ingredients in various skincare products. They could be used as fertilizer, but also could be turned into drugs. And Holt, who was mentioned in the emails, was also linked to a meeting time and place with his wife. Maddox immediately pulled up surveillance for the location. Audio analysis showed that Holt knew about the missing cargo, and when Raven's wife tried to report it, he stopped her. They parted ways on bad terms. After watching the footage, Raven checked Holt's finances and found that he owed a lot of money to the bank. Among the transactions, one incoming payment came from Rob, his boss. By this point, Raven's suspicion index dropped to 94.7%, showing this lead was indeed relevant. And now Holt became a suspect too. Raven tried calling Rob again, but to his surprise, Holt answered the phone. He said Rob had gone out on some business, but he couldn't find him anywhere. When Holt returned to the room, he told Raven he still hadn't found Rob. Raven immediately laid it out, saying he knew Holt owed a lot of money, and warned him that he was now a murder suspect. Holt hesitated at first, but the threat of the mercy court loomed, and he finally told the truth. He admitted he owed so much money because of gambling, and Rob had helped him pay it off during the worst times. So after finding out Rob was the one stealing the cargo, he went to Raven's wife and tried to convince her not to report Rob. Raven immediately asked where Rob was, but Holt said Rob took the morning off, and he was the only one missing that morning. Then Holt added that after the party yesterday, Rob had him drive the car away, meaning Rob had stayed at Raven's house all day. Maddox pulled up the neighbor's backyard surveillance, and by slowing it down, Raven saw movement in the bushes at 10:08 a.m., which perfectly matched the crime time. The neighbor had left at 11:23 a.m. Maddox checked traffic footage and saw Rob hiding in a car trunk. Rob now looked like the prime suspect. Raven quickly contacted Jack and told her to go capture Rob immediately. By now, everything was clear, but Raven's suggestion index didn't drop. Maddox still suspected Raven of killing his wife. When Raven confronted it, Maddox continued following protocol, but its internal logic seemed to conflict. Meanwhile, the police had quickly surrounded Rob's residence. As SWAT breached the door, Maddox began pulling citywide surveillance, trying to track Viking Shipping's cargo trucks. But after the SWAT team stormed in, they found the house empty, just a strange photo inside. The little boy in the photo seemed to be young Rob, but the other half was torn off. Raven felt the photo was hiding something, so he had Maddox try to match the missing half. At that moment, SWAT found a small warehouse behind Rob's house, filled with chemicals. If Rob was making drugs, driving the truck into the red-controlled zone, the cargo would have been stolen before unloading. Maddox reminded Raven that Rob not only had a master's in electrical engineering, but was also highly skilled in chemistry. SWAT found a terrorist manual on site. Maddox analyzed it and found that UG could be used not just for drugs but mixed with nitric acid to make bombs, and nitric acid was also in the shipping cargo. At that moment, Raven finally realized that Rob's goal wasn't drugs, it was bomb making. While everyone was stunned, Maddox locked onto Rob's cargo truck, which was heading toward downtown. The police got the alert and immediately rushed to intercept it. Meanwhile, Maddox matched the other half of the photo in the database and found it was David, the first death row convict of the Mercy Court, who was Rob's biological brother. Everything suddenly made sense. Rob had planned all this for revenge, targeting the Mercy Court and Raven specifically. While monitoring Rob's route, Maddox detected another person in the car besides Rob. Raven suddenly realized something was wrong. He quickly called his daughter but couldn't reach her. He had Maddox check the surveillance at his father-in-law's house and discovered Rob had kidnapped his daughter, escalating the situation. Raven told Jack to rush over, but just as she left the warehouse, it exploded, causing heavy SWAT casualties. Watching the fire, Maddox was shocked too. This was only a fraction of the explosives. If the truck's bombs went off, the entire city would be leveled. Luckily, Jack was unharmed. She immediately started the chase, following Raven's instructions. As the truth came out, Raven's suspicion index dropped straight to 0. But Raven refused to leave. He still needed to use the AI system's command to save his daughter. But if he stayed in the chair, the system would still execute the countdown. Raven breaking the rules caused Maddox's program to enter a logical conflict.
Everything you deduced. The facts made it appear impossible. Your gut instincts were right.
Yeah, I was right.
Seeing Maddox stabilize after a brief pause, Raven realized it had evolved. It seemed to truly understand human emotions. Finally, Maddox allowed Raven to stay and granted him full command, enabling him to mobilize all city police. But intercepting a truck full of explosives wasn't easy. Any tiny spark could trigger the bombs. The truck barreled through downtown, heading for the Mercy Court building. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes. The police tried to stop Rob, but every attempt got smashed aside. The SWAT team could only deploy a helicopter to rescue the hostage first. But when SWAT landed on the truck from the helicopter, officers in front tried to make Rob slow down with guns. Rob didn't care. He slammed the wheel and sent the police cars flying, forcing the rescue to halt. After the failed rescue, Jack forcibly took command, ordering the front interception team to deploy a remote-controlled bomb truck. Once the truck crossed the bridge, it would reach Mercy Court immediately. They had to stop Rob before that. Raven panicked. His daughter was still in the truck, but Jack kept going her own way. Raven kept pleading, but it was too late. The unmanned bomb truck was already on its way. The expected explosion didn't happen, and Raven breathed a sigh of relief while asking Maddox if it was the one who did it. Maddox didn't answer, because there was no time left. With nothing blocking it, the truck sped toward the Mercy Court building, and Raven told Jack to ride the hoverbike up in front of Rob's car. Seeing his daughter tied up in the passenger seat, Raven held back his emotions and tried to convince Rob to stop. But Rob didn't budge at all. Seeing that Rob was completely stubborn, Jack fired a shot on her own. Rob instantly went berserk and drove straight into the courthouse. After getting out, he didn't immediately detonate the bomb. Instead, he held hostages and took out the remaining security guards. With less than 10 seconds to go before the trial ended, Raven freed the restraints just before the countdown ended and rushed to the main hall via the elevator. When the elevator doors opened, Raven grabbed a bulletproof vest off a guard put it on, and immediately put on his headset to stay in touch with Maddox. Seeing his daughter in Rob's hands, Raven raised his hands and stepped out. Seeing Raven come out, Rob pulled out the detonator, ready to take revenge for his brother. Just as he was about to trigger the bomb, Maddox appeared on the screen in the hall. Rob insisted that his brother was innocent, and Maddox told him to show the proof. His brother had been wrongfully killed, a wound Rob had never healed from, so he naturally wouldn't pass up a chance to clear his brother's name. He said that 2 years ago, when he found his struggling brother, he felt sorry for him as an older brother, so he gave him a phone and some cash. Soon after, a murder happened where his brother was. But at the time of the crime, he had been on the phone with him the whole time. As long as he could find that call record, he could prove his brother's innocence. While Rob was telling his story, Maddox told Raven over the headset that unplugging the detonator's battery would stop the explosion. After Rob finished, Maddox explained that when they captured David back then, they didn't find the phone, and the murder weapon on the victim had David's fingerprints, so they couldn't overturn the verdict at the time. Hearing this, Rob was completely enraged. He yelled that the Mercy Court was nothing but a slaughterhouse. While Rob was losing it, Raven's daughter bit him, and he instinctively loosened his grip. Raven seized the moment, lunged at him, and they started struggling. But Raven, being a battle-hardened cop, quickly grabbed the detonator, removed the battery, and in no time pinned Rob to the ground. Positions reversed. Raven picked up a gun and aimed at Rob. He wanted to shoot this killer dead, but with Maddox and his daughter holding him back, Raven had to choke down his anger and didn't pull the trigger. But Jock, rushing up from behind, fired a few shots at Rob. Raven was a bit shocked and immediately rushed over to stop her from shooting more. At this point, Rob, lying on the ground, said he had called the police back then, and a female officer answered the call on July 15. Maddox immediately pulled up Rob's cloud data and successfully found the call recording between the brothers. The system also tracked that when David was captured, his phone appeared near his home in the police station, proving Rob was telling the truth. Back then, Jack was the one escorting David. Raven immediately checked her records and found that she had taken David's phone from the evidence room and secretly thrown it under the bridge. The truth finally came out, but Jake showed no remorse. Her reason was that they needed the first AI trial to succeed, and they needed the Mercy Court. To establish the Mercy Court, they tampered with evidence, forgetting that the system was originally meant to deliver fairer justice. In the end, Jack was handcuffed, and Raven brought the absurd trial to a close. After this trial, Maddox learned how to understand human emotions, and finally it erased Raven's interrogation records. Law is supposed to be the most rational product of human civilization, but in the world of extreme trial, humans handed that power over to machines. AI doesn't get angry or pity anyone, it just calculates. But justice has never been a math problem. It needs hesitation, doubt, and even a touch of human bias. When all verdicts turn into cold numbers and probabilities, what we lose might not just be freedom, but our very humanity. That's it for today's breakdown. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.